I, 18M, am graduating next week. Graduates are allowed to bring 3 guests, so I'm bringing my mom, dad, and my BF. My sister is also graduating, and she's bringing her 2 friends from camp. My bio dad Ted found out about the graduation and asked me for a ticket for him and his wife. I told Ted that there were no tickets. He found out about the extra ticket, and he called me and begged to come to his only kid's graduation. I refused and said I wouldn't find another ticket for his wife either. I told him he was not my dad, and if he tried to come to my graduation, I'd get him kicked out. I don't think of Ted as my dad. My dad, technically my stepdad, Jason is my dad. When my mom was pregnant with me, Ted got his dream job in a different state across the country and told my mom he had to take it. My mom couldn't come. He left us anyways, and she gave birth alone. A few months later, he asked her for a divorce because he found someone else. When I was in Prec, I met Madison, and we became best friends. Her mom had left her as a baby too. Long story short, my mom fell in love with her dad, and they got married when we were 7. As far as I'm concerned, they're my real family, and Ted's a stranger who shares my DNA. Now Ted's family is blowing up my phone, calling me spoiled and my mom a parental alienation, and said I was being disrespectful to Ted. His wife called, and I told her to fudge off too. Am I the a-hole? Relevant comments. Commenter. NTA. It's a day about your achievement. If you do not feel he helped you get there, that says a lot about his parenting. If you used your 3 tickets, he is certainly not entitled to your sister's tickets. I could ask my HS for more tickets, but I didn't want to. Commenter. NTA. I wouldn't use the term bio dad, as that implies a certain degree of relations. A better term to use would be biological donor, as that makes the nature of your relationship clear to anyone who hears it. Good idea, LMAO. I wanted to call him a sperm donor, but they actually are helping people have babies, so it's not fair to them. Commenter. NTA. He is just a sperm donor. If he loved and cared for your mom, he wouldn't have left, and he certainly wouldn't have met someone else while on the other side of the country, knowing his wife was alone with his baby. It also doesn't sound like he ever reached out much to have a relationship with you. So, honestly, what does he expect? Some states do adult adoptions. If your state does, you could always ask Jason to adopt you, now that you don't need your sperm donor to agree to sign over his rights. My dad adopted me after they got married. Ted signed over his rights pretty quickly. He says it's because he wanted to make me happy as a kid, but I think it's because he didn't know his wife was infertile yet. My mom adopted Madison. NTA. Still, info. How much interaction have you had with him over the years? The way you write it was minimal, but he seems to know too much for that to be the case. In any case, it's your graduation, and he shirked his responsibilities to his wife and you. Calling you spoiled seems a bit rich, and he alienated himself by moving far away. He used to call me once every couple of months. My parents encouraged me to stay in contact if I wanted, but it's not like he ever bothered to anything more. It's mainly Ted's family that keeps him posted. BC. I'm close with my cousins. Separate post from father. AITA for telling my ex-wife and her husband to stop being inappropriate at our son's graduation party. Posted July 13th, 2022. I, 48M, do not have a great relationship with my ex-wife, 42F, though I do my best to keep it courteous for our sons, 18M, sake. They have done everything to alienate me from my own child and have succeeded, with their wealth and connections, to the point where I had no recourse in the courts. My son would say several hurtful things that his mother clearly coached him to say on the rare occasions I got to speak with him. He had a belated graduation party with his stepsister, also 18. This past weekend, and when I arrived, my ex-wife and her husband, 37M, tried to make me feel unwelcome, though several members of my side of the family were there. I wasn't allowed near my son at all, not even for a single photo, and did not get to speak with him. It seemed her entire family coordinated an effort to keep me away from my son the entire time. At this party, my ex-wife was wearing a very inappropriate dress. Her entire bare back was exposed. I noticed that her husband was often caressing her lower back quite intimately. I felt disgusted that they were doing this at my son's graduation party. He kissed her several times as well throughout the night. When I was finally fed up, I walked over to them and firmly told them to stop with the PDA. It was our son's special moment, and their behavior was attention-seeking and disrespectful. My ex-wife threatened to kick me out. I told her it was not her place, and her husband said, "I'm his father, not you," and stood up as if to start a physical altercation. My son saw what was happening and came over. He told me to leave to keep the peace. I left without any fuss. Now, my sister, my son's aunt, said I completely embarrassed her and our other family members at the party. My family is split. My mother, however, is on my side. Verdict: white EA. Relevant comment. This comment has been downvoted, ESH. The second bit makes me doubt the first, but if true, It wasn't cool to keep you out of the pictures if that's what your son wanted. That said, backless dresses are fine, and you're not the PDA police. Again, it's telling that your verbal objection was to their relationship, not being excluded from the celebration. Examine your priorities. I never got to speak with my son before the illustrious end of the party. I don't know if he said nothing about me not being in any of the pictures. I have nothing against their relationships. I have a girlfriend of my own. This comment has been downvoted. ESH, you were there for your son, and you don't get to have an opinion on what she wears. But they also seem to have made it very difficult to be in your son's life, which isn't good for anyone involved. I just feel like we're missing info still though on how all this went down and why your son is so angry. They have made it impossible to be in my son's life. They've filled his head with lies about how I abandoned him and his mother, and he refuses to hear the truth from me. I'm disappointed to say it, but it seems my son has severe anger issues, given that he is always upset with me. This comment has been downvoted. ESH. Look, having an exposed back is not inappropriate, nor is showing affection, and it sounds like they were going to wind you up in some way even if she was wearing a burqa. They are clearly using the child as a weapon though. In our country, alienation is considered such an abuse of the child it stands as a crime in its own right, and I can understand your distress. But direct your anger toward the right things in the right way and use it for good. What happened here only gave them ammunition to use against you. They do their best to anger me though I try not to let it get to me. The courts are biased against me, and I can't even fight them in court because they force me to sign away my rights. They have used every weapon in their stock to humiliate me and alienate my son away from me, and it seems I can't win. Albeit, how did they force you to sign away your rights? That is a big claim. My son wanted my ex-wife's new husband to adopt him. She coached him to say that he would hate me forever if I didn't sign away my rights, that we would speak more on my terms if I did, and that he would be happier. For my son's sake I agreed, but regretted it ever since. Can't imagine why you're divorced. For your information, we are divorced because when I got an amazing, prestigious opportunity to have a life-changing career move, my ex-wife did not want to move a few states and kept my infant son with her ever since. YTA. Sorry. It's their home. After reading what horrible people they are and all the horrible things they've done to you, I'm surprised you were even invited. Were you invited, or did you hear about it from others and just show up? It was an open invitation posted to Facebook. This comment has been downvoted. ESH. Sounds like they knew how to press your buttons, and you let them. My ex-wife's husband is particularly adept at this. I have no doubt he was stroking her back for that reason. Were you present in his life? When you mentioned moving a couple of states away, did you try to visit him in person? Did you try to set a custody schedule, either through your ex-wife or the courts, so that he could visit you often? Yes. Though I was incredibly busy, I spoke to him at least once every couple of weeks. Since my new job did not pay well at the beginning, I was unable to afford to fly to him, something my ex used constantly against me. I tried to fight her in the courts, but she and her husband have money, and it was always a loss for me. Could have given him a much better life, but your ex and her husband used their wealth and connections against you? Even according to your own telling of this, it seems like your ex and son did just fine. Also, not really all that selfish to want to stay somewhere with your family/career/friends/support structure. Does seem pretty selfish of you to ask her to abandon all that for your career though. Your mental acrobatics are truly a little stunning to behold. There are things other than material wealth that are valuable in life. My ex-wife, coming from a poor background, should have realized that. But she's passed her money-hungry ways onto my son, who is a gifted artist but wants to pursue computer science, no doubt for the fat paycheck. How often did you return home to see your son after this prestigious move? Did you pay child support? Did you call him regularly? I spoke to him at least once a week or two, if I were really busy. I could not afford to visit him in person. I sent him many gifts. So did you ever visit in person? Have him visit in person? Or was it just phone calls only? When I was older and more established, I visited him in person. YTA. I'm getting a strong sense that you're not telling the whole story. The strangest part is you describe being at your son's graduation party and have been effectively barred from seeing him at all. Then in the following paragraph you're pissed that your ex's back is showing and her husband has his hand on it? How is it they're able to block you from seeing him while you're at the same party without causing a confrontation? But then the dress issue leads to a confrontation? It doesn't add up. I am telling everything that is relevant. My son never approached me, never even asked to take a picture or ask for a congratulations. Every time I tried to get closer, his mother's family and her husband's family would swarm around him and block me. You had an amazing and prestigious career move that you left your wife for, but still never had the time and money to visit your son or pay for him to visit you when you live in the same country. For 18 years? YTA. This has to be a rage bait troll. It was an incredibly prestigious fellowship in a field that is very difficult to break into. Though it did not pay well, it gave me opportunities one never would have been able to pursue otherwise. I saved up a hefty chunk of my salary in case I ever got this opportunity. That's how prestigious it is. After a few years, I was paid quite nicely in my new field and flew out to visit my son often. Update from the son. I figured out my bio dad posted on AITA, and now I know how he sees me in the world. And it's exactly as moronic, self-pitying, and narcissistic as I expected him to be. If it wasn't my actual bio dad, Ted, I'd have thought it was a troll. Ted literally thinks my mom and my dad conspired to keep me away from him for 18 years. Ever wonder why I don't want to be around you? Maybe it's because I don't want to be near an asshole who abandoned his pregnant wife for a bullshit dream job living on minimum wage in a cabin for 3 years? Maybe it's because you left my mom for another woman while she was raising me as a single mom and you were out living your dream? Maybe it's because you called once a month, if that? Maybe it's because you haven't paid a single cent of child support? Or maybe it's because my dad stepped up to raise me. I know you fucking hate my dad, Ted. He's a better man than you are, and my mom and I are so lucky to have him. He's my real dad. And it's not just because he adopted me after you signed your rights away. It's because he was the dad I needed even when mom and him weren't dating. I want you to know that I wanted him to be my dad since I was 4 years old. Or maybe it's because mom and I have the picture-perfect family that you wanted with your wife that you hate because she's infertile and isn't 21 anymore. A mom, a dad, a son, and a daughter, happily living together as a family? You had me and mom, and you left us for a higher calling, and are mad that we didn't come crawling to you. You were never part of my family, Ted. My accomplishments aren't yours to claim. You did nothing to earn this graduation. We graduated at the top 5% of our class because mom tutored us. We got into good colleges because dad took us to our clubs and games and meetings and tournaments and everything you called frou-frou nonsense. He was our mentor for robotics. Did you know that? No, because you don't care what I like. It's us, by the way. Because I have a sister that you try to ignore. Because it was okay for you, a 30-year-old man, to abandon his wife and child. But it's unacceptable that a teenage boy stepped up to raise his daughter as a single dad. I don't know how you think the way you do. I don't want to know. I'm not your son. Relevant comments. Me too. I am also curious about the nature of Ted's dream. I enjoyed how OPE Ted into the sun using only words. Basically, he's always been an elitist dick, and he got some scholarship to go live in a cabin for 2 or 3 years making $15K and writing academic religious shit, and he jumped on the shitty opportunity. My mom supported him through grad school, and he just left her when she was pregnant with me because apparently it was his calling. My mom literally couldn't travel because it was a high-risk pregnancy. OMG, was he the guy complaining about your mom's inappropriate backless dress and how he wasn't invited to your graduation party and other BS? Yep. I banned him and his wife from our graduation, so I don't know why he crashed our graduation party. My mom's still a bit shaken up about it since he cornered her to talk about the dress before my dad came back. I read some of his comments and other comments he got dragged, rightfully so. He sounds like he's always the victim, refuses to take responsibility. I'm glad you had loving parents growing up. Nothing is ever his fault. Listening to him, you'd think the whole world was against him. Yeah, I'm very lucky for my mom and my dad. My sister and I were the best matchmakers, lol. He made a complete ass out of himself and got dragged in the comments. OP, it sounds like your parents and your extended family love you and have your back. Don't give this Yahoo any more thought. He's just bitter because he made a bad choice years ago and then continued to make bad choices. Keep living your best life and kicking ass. Congratulations on your graduation. Yeah, I'm very lucky to have an awesome family. Unfortunately, we've gone no contact with Ted's family because they're pushing us to forgive him again, even my cousins. I'm tired of the cycle of him doing something awful, his family being mad at him for a few minutes, and then them pushing us to forgive him this time. Commenter. Hope you realize you're a sperm donor and nothing more. Please leave your son alone. He deserves so much better than your harassment. OP, could you get back payment for child support? That may be the only thing that Ted could be useful for. I don't like to use the word sperm donor because sperm donors are actually helping people have children. They're doing a good thing. Ted's a waste of space. I don't know for sure, but I think because my dad adopted me, Ted doesn't owe child support to my mom anymore. Update. Ted just won't quit, so you'd think after I told Ted, bio dad, or the guy who left us for a cabin in the woods, to stay away from my graduation, that would be the end of it, right? Wrong. Ted decided that wasn't going to stop him from having his proud father moment because, apparently leaving your pregnant wife to play writer in the woods qualifies you for that. Here's what went down. The morning of graduation, I wake up to like 27 missed calls. Ted's family is blowing up my phone. Apparently, Ted flew in early and was hanging around my school, trying to get someone to give him a ticket. Yeah, you read that right. Ted was out there, practically begging anyone with an extra ticket like some kind of desperate high schooler trying to sneak into prom. I guess being told no wasn't enough for him. He needed that sweet validation of watching his son graduate. What's worse, he apparently got one. How? Well, my sister's friend didn't show up, COVID or something, ick, and Ted got wind of it. Cue him slipping into the graduation like some kind of wannabe undercover spy. I didn't even realize he was there at first. I'm sitting there, all pumped for the ceremony, happy that my real family is around me, mom, dad, Jason, and my boyfriend all proud and supportive. Meanwhile, Ted's out there lurking in the shadows like a ghost of poor life decisions. The real kicker came after the ceremony. We're taking pictures, my boyfriend, mom, Jason, my sister, all smiles, when suddenly Ted appears. He's strutting over, all smug, with his wife in tow, wearing this ridiculous wide-brimmed hat like she's at the Kentucky Derby or something. Ted, in full dramatic fashion, comes up to me like he's been waiting for this moment his entire life and says, "I'm so proud of you, son." Son. The guy who couldn't bother to show up for parent-teacher conferences or, my actual life, decides that now is the time to play dad. I swear to God, if there'd been dramatic music playing, I would have lost it. I just stared at him. You're proud of me? For what? For getting here without you? But before I could even respond, Jason steps forward. My dad. And Jason's not a big guy or anything, but he's got this presence when he's protecting his family. He stands between us and says, "You need to leave." Ted, of course, starts stammering, trying to explain that he has every right to be there, talking about how he deserves to share this moment, how he's still my father, yada yada. At this point, a crowd's gathering. People are starting to stare, which, let's be real, is probably what Ted wanted, some big dramatic scene to paint himself as the tragic, estranged father. Jason didn't flinch. You signed away your rights. You've done nothing to earn this moment. Ted tries to get around him, and that's when things escalated. Mom steps in, too fierce, in full mama bear mode. She's like, "This is not your family, Ted. This is his moment, not yours. You've had 18 years to be part of his life, and you chose not to. You don't get to show up now." Ted looked like someone had slapped him with a wet fish. His wife tried to say something, but honestly, I wasn't even listening. I'd had enough. This was my moment, and he was ruining it. So I did what any reasonable person would do. I turned my back on him. Literally. I just walked away. He tried to follow, but security caught wind of the situation. Maybe my mom had called ahead? She's like that, and Ted was escorted out of the venue like some dude trying to sneak into a VIP club. Honestly, it was the most satisfying thing I've seen in years. But here's the thing. He didn't leave. Oh no, Ted and his wife showed up at the after party. Yeah, I don't know how they found out where it was. Maybe one of my cousins let it slip because, spoiler alert, Ted's family still has this weird sympathy thing for him. I guess because he's a sad, middle-aged man whose life didn't turn out the way he thought it would. He showed up at our house with a cake. A literal cake. As if sugar could fix 18 years of abandonment. My mom was about ready to explode. But my dad, cool as always, just asked Ted to leave. Again. This time. Without security, just calm, collected, and direct. But Ted? He stood there with this stupid cake, saying things like, "This is for my son," and "I deserve to be here." Honestly, I'm still in shock about how delusional he is. Like, dude, you had your chance and you blew it. We ended up closing the party early because the vibe was ruined. My mom was on edge, Jason was pissed but trying not to show it, and even my sister was stressed. The cake, by the way, got tossed in the trash. Ted's family keeps calling, and I'm this close to blocking all of them.